So your due date came and went and still no baby. Your provider mentions induction, but then you've heard that you should let nature take its course. Maybe a friend is sending you a video about it, your feed is full of conflicting opinions, and you're plus 40 weeks, you're exhausted, you're uncomfortable, and you're just trying to figure it out. So today I want to talk about being overdue, inductions, what your provider is looking at. And I mean specifically the numbers and what they mean. And probably most importantly, I'll give you the questions that you need to ask at your next appointment. Now, if you just wanted a quick, broad answer, I'd say, look, after your due date, whether to induce or wait has so much to do with how you and the baby are doing and how far past the due date you are. So there's really not a clear-cut induce or wait. However, if you want to know what specifically your OB is testing and watching for, you are gonna love this video because I am gonna arm you with so much information about what goes into this decision. Now, of course, you could literally go into labor at any time. You could even start labor right now as you are watching this video, which would make this video completely irrelevant to you. But if you don't happen to be in labor right now, you are gonna wanna keep watching this video. By the way, I'm Diana. I'm a physician assistant specialized in women's health and gynecology, and I am a mom of 4. And on this channel, we talk about women's health, pregnancy, babies, and also being a mama. So subscribe and then let me know in the comments section how far along you are. And since you clicked on this video, I would assume that you or your loved one is either overdue or close to the due date, which means I can also safely assume that you are feeling genuinely uncomfortable, both emotionally and physically, because you've been pregnant for a long time. It feels like forever. And people also keep asking, when is that baby gonna come? So what to do when you're overdue always has a lot of people giving their opinions, but that's all they are. They're opinions. And most of the time they're just based on personal experience or just anecdotal. And opinions are often based on, should you induce or should you wait? But that really is the wrong question. Not because it doesn't matter, it really does, but because it frames this as binary when it's actually not. The real question is, what does your specific situation look like right now? What is the monitoring actually showing? Because the answer to that question is what should drive the decision. Not necessarily how many weeks you are, not what your birth plan says, and certainly not what somebody told you. So, unless that somebody is your medical provider, by the way. But the medical guidelines say this: induction between 41 and 42 weeks can be considered. Induction is recommended by 42 weeks. Also, active monitoring beginning at 41 weeks is widely practiced and supported. So what does that mean? Because I know that was long. If you are 41 weeks in an uncomplicated pregnancy, you are not in an emergency situation. You're in a window. And what happens during that window is determined by what your monitoring shows. So time out for a second because I want to make sure you understand. Everything that I'm going to walk you through applies to uncomplicated pregnancies. So if you have conditions like high blood pressure, gestational diabetes, concerns about the baby's growth, or if you've noticed decreased fetal movements, that changes the whole picture and your provider's timeline for you changes. It becomes more urgent. In other words, your individual risk picture changes the conversation. So first, let's talk about exactly what's involved with monitoring. And once you understand it, it helps you understand the decision-making so much more. So when your provider talks about monitoring at 41 weeks, they're typically referring to a few specific tests. So let me walk you through each of them so you know what you're looking at and what the results actually mean. So the first one is called a non-stress test, or an NST. Now it gets its name because it puts no stress on you or the baby. It's just monitoring it. So 2 sensors are placed on your belly. One tracks your baby's heart rate and one tracks uterine activity. And you'll sit reclined for somewhere between 20 and 40 minutes while the monitor runs. What it's looking for is something called accelerations, which is brief increases in the baby's heart rate, specifically at least 2 increases of 15 beats per minute or more, each lasting 15 seconds. So those accelerations are a sign that the baby's nervous system is reactive and also well oxygenated. So when you see them, that's called a reactive NST. A reactive NST is reassuring. It's one of the best results that you can get at 41 weeks. Now, what if the NST comes back non-reactive? Now, come here and listen up because I really want you to hear me because this is the part that sends a lot of women into unnecessary panic. A non-reactive NST doesn't necessarily mean that something is wrong. Non-reactive NSTs have a very high false positive rate. So in the vast majority of cases where the test is non-reactive, the baby is actually fine. Babies have sleep cycles. They go through quiet periods, so they may simply not have moved enough during the testing window. It just means that your provider needs more information. So they may order the next test. So the next test is something called a biophysical profile, or BPP. Now, this is an ultrasound that looks at 4 specific fetal behaviors and then combines them with the NST for a total score of 10. Now, this is going to sound technical. It's really not, so okay, stay with me. The 4 things the ultrasound is watching for is fetal breathing movements. Now, remember, the baby is not actually breathing. Their lungs are full of amniotic fluid, but we are watching for practice movements that the babies make with their chest and their diaphragm. Number 2 is baby movements. So the baby's moving its cute little arms and legs or body. Number 3 is muscle tone. The baby is opening and closing a hand or extending and flexing a limb. And then amniotic fluid level. Now, the amniotic fluid, which is the amount of fluid surrounding the baby. Now, each component either gets 0 or 2 points. And then the NST gets another 2 points if reactive. And you add that all up, and then you have a score out of 10. So what does that score mean? A score of 8 or 10 is reassuring. This is a normal result, so that's good news. A score of 6. Now, this one I want to explain carefully because this is where a lot of confusion happens. A score of 6 is called equivocal. And that just means that it's not reassuring, but it's also not alarming. At 41 weeks, some providers will repeat the test within 24 hours to get a clearer picture. Others might just recommend moving towards delivery, depending on your specific situation. Now, what if you get a 4 or below? So a score of 4 or lower is generally much more concerning and typically will prompt a more urgent discussion about delivery. The exact next steps depends entirely on your situation. So your gestational age, your fluid level, just your overall clinical picture. Now, why does fluid matter so much? Now, I want to talk about this for a second because low fluid at 41 weeks is one of the most significant findings that your OB will be looking for, and here's why. Now, later in pregnancy, a lot of that fluid comes from the baby's urine, which is a normal part of how the baby's body is working. And providers check the fluid level because it can give important clues about how well the placenta is doing its job. Remember, the placenta is what is delivering oxygen and nutrients from mama to the baby. Now, by 41 weeks, if the amniotic fluid level is low, it might be a sign that placenta is starting to work less effectively. Now, that doesn't always mean that something is wrong right that second, but it is a warning sign that your provider will be watching for. That's why low fluid is one of the clear medical reasons that a provider may recommend delivery instead of continuing to wait. Third piece of the monitoring picture is a cervical assessment called the Bishop score. This is a clinical exam where your provider checks 5 things: how dilated your cervix is, how effaced or thinned out it is, how soft or firm it feels, its position, and then how far down the baby's head is sitting. So if your cervix has a Bishop score of 8 or above, it just means that it's considered favorable. If induction were done, it would probably go more smoothly. A score of 6 or below indicates an unfavorable cervix, meaning your cervix isn't quite ready yet. A low Bishop score doesn't mean induction can't happen or shouldn't happen, but it does mean that if induction is the right choice for you, your provider may need to use medications or other ways to help ripen your cervix first, which does add time, but it doesn't make induction impossible. So now you know 2 important pieces of the puzzle: how your baby is doing and how ready your cervix is. But here's the thing, neither one is a guarantee of what things will look like a few days from now. So for example, let's say you're 41 weeks and your NST is reactive, your amniotic fluid looks good, and your baby's biophysical profile is reassuring, maybe an 8 or a 10 out of 10. And your OB might say, hey, everything looks good today, so let's just keep monitoring. And what that usually means is come back for repeat testing, often about twice a week. That's not the same thing as doing nothing. Now, does that mean that we can just keep monitoring forever? 41 weeks, 42 weeks, 43 weeks? No. Even if all of your testing continues to look reassuring, once you reach 42 weeks, that's when the recommendations change, and here's why. The risk of stillbirth starts to slowly increase after 41 weeks and then rises more significantly after 42 weeks. Now, at 41 weeks, the overall risk is still low, so there isn't a reason to panic, but it is a reason your provider is watching more closely. And that's why there may be a period where waiting does make sense, but not a point where waiting forever does. Now, as promised, I'll give you the questions that you need to ask at your next appointment to help you understand your situation. So question number 1, What did my NST and my fluid check show? And what does that mean for me right now? So this helps you move the conversation from just general information to your specific results. Question 2, based on my test results, my cervix, and then my overall situation, would you recommend an induction right now, or is it okay to continue to monitor? Now, this is probably the most important question. You're asking your provider to tell you whether they're making a medical recommendation or whether you still have options. And then question 3, if we keep monitoring, what specific findings would make you recommend induction? And then write down the answer so that helps you understand their plan. You're not just waiting indefinitely. There's usually a specific result or change that would shift their recommendation. Question 4, if a test result was borderline or unclear, what does that mean and what happens next? Now, most of the time, there is a clear next step. So make sure you understand what that is before you leave. Now, there are a couple of things to remember. If your situation isn't urgent, it's okay to ask if you can think about it. It's also okay to ask whether something is being recommended because of your specific results or because of routine practice or policy. However, if your provider is recommending induction because the monitoring found something concerning, that information is definitely worth taking seriously because those recommendations aren't based on a schedule or a policy. They're based on what the testing is telling them about your baby. Now, if you haven't gone into labor since hitting play on this video, because I know this video was kind of long, then these questions and this information is going to help you feel more prepared to make decisions and also to understand why your OB is recommending whatever they're recommending. But hey, I hope this video was informative for you. I hope it helped you feel more calm about this decision that you need to make. But if you did like it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and then the next good video for you might be a video on how to tell when labor is starting versus just Braxton Hicks contractions. I've done a couple of videos about that. I'm going to link to that playlist right here. Click on that, and I will see you over there.